Join me in a very busy day just cooking and getting some things done around the house. Plus, I have a couple of updates on our new property. This morning, I'm getting breakfast going. I'm actually making a big batch of granola. You can see that it's big because I poured in like the whole canister and then added in even some more. My kids love yogurt parfait type things, and so I have a bunch of yogurt already made up in the refrigerator, and so I thought I would make some granola to go with it. Now, I'm not actually following a full-on recipe in this one because I already know how to make granola. I do have a recipe for this actually on my blog, but I've made granola so many times, I kind of know the consistency that I need when I'm making it, so I can kind of like do it just off of kind of like feeling it, the texture of it. So adding together some oil. I used coconut oil and I actually ran out of coconut oil, so I had added in some avocado oil as well, and honey, vanilla, a little bit of cinnamon, and just tossing my oats in that, and then cooking it on low in the oven. And then I like to add in some nuts and raisins, but I realized later I didn't have any of the nuts, like the kind that we like to put in the granola, so we just did raisins, which they all liked it, so it was fine. I'm also scrambling up a few eggs because my littles will definitely be hungry before this is ready. Our morning is starting a little bit earlier than normal. You can see it's only 6:43, and typically my kids all sleep past 7, but this is actually the day after the time change, and all of my kids were up like an hour earlier because the time went back. And so to them, it feels like it's 7:45, but it's really 6:45. And so anyway, everyone was up early. So I thought I had time to make granola for breakfast because this is something that typically I'd rather make the night before and then have it. And now I used to be able to make a huge pan like this and it would last us for several mornings breakfasts, but not this time. They ate almost all of this. There was one like little tiny jar left of granola, and some of the kids had it with yogurt, and then we actually ran out of yogurt, and so the rest had it with milk, just like with cereal. And then some kids like to add in berries, you know, just kind of different variations of yogurt and granola. And then, like I said, eggs as well, because I have one son that basically, if he doesn't get eggs, he doesn't get filled up in the morning. And then my babies always need something quick, and eggs are quick. So I'm also feeding my sourdough. I'm not going to be using it today, but I have some things I'm going to be making with it later on in the week. And so that's just something I like to do in the beginning of the week, is getting the sourdough fed. So getting that done and then adding in the raisins now and giving this granola a quick little stir, and then I will continue roasting it in the oven while I set the table and get everything else for breakfast ready. I'm adding a little bit of maple syrup into the granola and yogurt as well, just to kind of sweeten it, because I do ferment my yogurt for 24 hours, and so it can be pretty sour. And so I'm just adding a little bit of maple syrup just for seasoning. All right, so this is a clip after we finished eating. I actually didn't get like the full clip of cleaning up the kitchen. It was a mess just because everyone was kind of like helping themselves. So there was just like granola, oatmeal like everywhere. So got that cleaned up, and then my baby right now, I feel like he is like a tornado. Literally everywhere he goes, there's this trail behind him. He stays happy now, like just toddling around, but he pulls everything out of every cabinet. He is constantly taking all the towels out of the bottom drawers. Like, it's his thing, but keeps him happy. And so I try to keep all things that are not breakable and things that he's allowed to get into and all the bottom drawers and cabinets, and just let him have at it. But it's just a constant mess of cleaning things up. And I know I shouldn't worry about it and just let it go until like the end of the day or till he's done for a nap. But I'm just like constantly like putting things away because I'm like tripping over junk. And so anyway, doing a quick cleanup. All right guys, so I'm going to take a quick moment and thank today's video sponsor, Element. If you have been around my channel for long, you guys know my love for Element. Element is a tasty electrolyte drink with everything you need and nothing you don't. Element is formulated to help anyone with their electrolyte needs. It is perfectly suited for those who are following a keto, low carb, or even a paleo diet. When you sweat, the primary electrolyte lost is sodium, and when sodium is not replaced, it's common to experience muscle cramps and fatigue. Element can help with those symptoms and other symptoms of electrolyte deficiencies. My family personally loves Element. We like all the different flavors, and right now Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack with any order. The sample pack will let you try all 8 of the different Element flavors, and it's also a great way to share Element with a friend. So if you guys are ready to try Element, be sure to use the link down in my description box below, or go to drinkelement.com/ouroilyhouse. That's drinklmnt.com/ouroilyhouse. I'm sure you guys will love Element as much as we do. The flavor is so delicious and all the ingredients are so clean. So it's the perfect electrolyte drink for anybody in your family. All right, so while I'm here and before I get busy with the rest of the daily chores and cooking and cleaning, just all the things, I was going to give you guys a little update on our farm. I've had lots of comments and questions about when we're planning on moving out there and just kind of, you know, updates on the farm. So it's kind of a slow go. There hasn't been like a ton of things to update you guys with, except that there's been a lot of things that we have done and we can see a difference too, but maybe it wouldn't be like as obvious to most people. When we bought the place, there was a mobile home on the property, and when that got removed, that left a lot of trash, lots of scrap metal, and just junk behind. And so we have been working hard with just kind of like cleaning up the area. We've taken so many loads to the scrap yard. That's actually one thing my kids love doing. They collect all the scrap and we let them have the scrap money. And so that is something that they've been loving to help with because they get some money out of it and it's a big help to us. So we've like had truckloads and trailers of different scrap. We have cleaned up so much glass. I guess whenever they removed the trailer, like windows got broken, and I know there was a lot of glass. And so the whole area is now very clean, and so that is a big, huge thing that we've been doing. Now, another thing we have been doing is we have been planting fruit trees. So I showed you guys in a different video a while back some of the fruit trees that we planted, and just recently we planted some apple trees and some peach trees. This is something that we wanted to do as quickly as we can because obviously when you plant fruit trees, it takes a while for the fruit to actually grow in the tree. And so we want to get those in the ground. So hopefully we will be getting fruit sooner than later. On the property, we already have a couple pear trees. And then recently we did plant, I think it was like in the spring, we planted some plum trees and cherry trees. So now we have several different varieties of fruit trees out there, and hopefully that'll be ready to go about the time when we move there. So the plan with that is we love the area that we live now. We have the best like surrounding like town by us that has just like the cutest little downtown. It's right on a river. There's lots of trails and places to ride bikes. It's just like in our area where we live now, in our house now, and our property here is like the perfect place for the ages of our kids right now. But we know as they grow, especially with all of these boys, they're gonna need more ground to explore on. And so that's why our plan is to move somewhere where there's a lot more acres. There's lots of area for my husband and the boys to hunt. We'll have more woods for the wood stove. We can make a bigger garden. My daughter loves gardening. And probably someday having horses for the kids as they get older. And also they already did hogs in 4-H last year. And so as we get more kids into 4-H, we're obviously gonna have more hogs. And so that place is going to be the perfect place for us as they get older. At least that's what we're thinking. And so we are in a huge rush to start building because we really like the place that we live now. And our goal is in the next 2 to 3 years that we would start building. We already know the house we want to build. We already have the blueprints for it. We've actually talked to a contractor. And so we know exactly what we're gonna build. We know exactly where we're going to build. And so now we are just doing things to the property constantly. In fact, just a couple days ago, we were out there planting grass seed because as you guys know from past videos, we actually drained a pond because that'll be like right in the area where we're building. And I don't like water, little kids. And so we planted some grass seed over that because that eventually will just be hopefully like kind of like front yard space. So we have been working on lots of things that we can do now before we actually start building. A lot of the different like out buildings are already there, like the chicken coop. There's like horse stables that we also have like a hog house and then a barn. We are working on those things, working on cleaning up, planting trees, planting grass. We're actually getting rock poured that will be our driveway eventually. Mainly now we're doing that because that will also be the way to get back to the back field, and we're planning on baling all the fields this coming summer. And so we're trying to use the property now and get it all ready so then when we start building, everything else is already done, if that makes sense. We want to put a big fence out in the front once we move there, and so that's another thing we talked about possibly doing now, is starting on the fence, just trying to do like little things so then once we start the building process, we're not like overwhelmed with all the other little things that need to be done. So anyway, that is an update on the property, and obviously as we do more and we get closer to building, I will definitely be documenting all of that. I think it's going to be a crazy experience, like building and I don't know, having to like pick out every little thing. I'm nervous about that, but hopefully you guys can help me. So anyway, that is the update on the property. And now I'm going to get back into the kitchen and work on making some lunch. All right, so today for lunch, I'm actually making a roast, and I'm going to do it in my Instapot. I love making roast in the Dutch oven and letting it slow cook all day. But today I really don't have time for that because it is getting close to lunchtime, so I'm just gonna do it in my Instapot. It's still super good in the Instapot, and it makes it really tender and makes it easier for the littles to eat it because it's kind of like falls apart when you make it in the Instapot. So for that, I have the Instapot. I always put on the saute mode first to sear all the sides, and then you can see here when I was getting it back out, it was like totally stuck to the bottom, but got it out, and that's all good because I'm going to be making a gravy in here, so I like little bits of the meat to be in there anyway for the gravy. I'm laying it on a bed of onions and then adding in a bunch of spices, and then a lot of times I would add in some bone broth, but I didn't actually have bone broth today, so I'm just adding in some water just to give it some liquid so it will steam in there and have really good flavor, and again to make it nice and tender. So I'm putting that in the Instapot and just cooking it on high pressure for like 20 minutes, and then while that's cooking, I'm going to get some mashed potatoes going, and I'm also going to get some sweet potatoes going. My younger 3 kids all prefer sweet potatoes over regular potatoes, and then the rest of us would definitely prefer like mashed potatoes. All of my kids like sweet potatoes, but the little ones like really love sweet potatoes, and you know, they have a lot of good benefits to them. And so I am just getting those in the oven to bake, and then I'll mash those up later. Not that the other ones don't really like mashed potatoes, it's just they really prefer sweet potatoes. And I have so many sweet potatoes right now. I bought a bunch from the store, and then My sister gave me sweet potatoes out of her garden, and my aunt gave me sweet potatoes out of her garden. So I have so many sweet potatoes. So I was starting to like get a little stressed. Like I have to use up these sweet potatoes. Now the ones out of the garden are not washed. And so those will last way longer. I have them in the basement in like a cool, dark place, unwashed. And so those will be fine. But I thought I better use up the store-bought ones because those will go bad a little bit quicker. So have a bag of those going, getting my mashed potatoes going. I'm also going to roast some asparagus. I only had one bag of frozen asparagus. Typically I do two because that's another thing that everyone in my family loves is asparagus. We all just, I don't know, it's one of those vegetables that might be a little bit different. Not everybody loves, but we love it. I just put a little bit of oil on it and some salt and pepper. Stick in the oven on high, like 400, and let it roast and get kind of crispy. So good. All right, so I got my roast out, shredded it up, and now I'm just making some gravy right inside my Instant Pot. So I have it back on the saute mode to let this kind of simmer and even kind of boil a little bit. And then I'm just adding in a little bit of flour. There's lots of flavor in this broth because of the meat that was in there. And so this is a really easy way to just make up a gravy. And then I am making some bone broth. So I didn't even clean out my Instant Pot. I just added in a bag of frozen bones and veggie scraps, added in some water, and I'm turning this on the soup mode. And I'll just let that cook because, like I said, we didn't have any bone broth, and that's definitely something I like to have, you know, just for recipes throughout the week. So getting that going. And then I'm going to get my mashed potatoes going. I got to tell you guys, you all gave me so many great tips on using my hand mixer. I don't know, it was like probably a month ago in a video I was telling you guys how like, oh man, I'm like the worst at using a hand mixer. I just splatter it everywhere. And everyone said it's because I put my milk in. They said first just put in your butter and like a little bit of milk and blend up your potatoes to where they're like already kind of mushy and then add in the milk. All right, so that was obviously just something I did not know. And that's made like a world of difference. So no more splattering everywhere when I make my mashed potatoes. So thank you all for giving me those comments. And anyone else that has that issue, that's what you do. That's the tip. All right, so after lunch, I'm heading outside. We have a huge mess just because all of the flowers from our like cut gardens are now dead. It actually today is really warm. You actually see I'm gonna take off my sweater here in a minute. There I am because I got so hot. It is a random, really warm day in November, but we already had our first frost. And so all the flowers are dead. So I'm pulling all of these out. Now I know that I could leave them and some of them would maybe like seed. I don't really know. I'm not great with flowers. Obviously, look at my bed. This is embarrassing. Holy moly, it's worse than I thought. It looks worse on video. Oh goodness. Okay, but don't worry. It looks way better now. It's all fixed. I have a bunch of tulip bulbs. If you guys remember last year in May, we went to Pella, Iowa for a tulip festival. And at the end of it, you can pick all the tulips. And they said you should leave them in a bag in a cool, dark place, and then after the first frost, sometime in like October or November, to plant the bulbs. So I'm doing this. There's probably people watching this cringing, so I'm probably doing it all wrong, but I'm giving it a whirl. So I went around to several different places where I pulled out my zinnias, and I am planting tulips in hopes that they come back up. Who knows? I don't even know. They said they do come back up, but it's not like a guarantee. So if it's not something easy to do, I'm sure I'm not the one that's gonna be able to get it to work, but figured why not? My daughter also was involved with this and we like put them everywhere. So we'll see if we get any tulips. All right, so for dinner tonight, I am actually making a quiche, and I am making this is still during like our afternoon nap time, and we have plans later today. We're gonna be out until dinner time, so I actually make this and then just stuck it in the refrigerator and baked it right when we got home and enjoyed it nice and hot. I did not get any clips. Anytime that I like put the camera away for the day, I never remember to get it back out. I was even like, oh, get a clip of this later on when we're eating it tonight for dinner. Nothing. Totally forgot. I'll tell you, it was really good, but I definitely like overflowed my pie pan, and like the grease from the sausage that I put in here and the butter and the crust like leaked over top, and my entire oven was like smoking and it was a mess. Thankfully, my husband the next day cleaned my oven for me. He actually did it like I was still sleeping. I woke up and he was cleaning the oven. I was like, oh man, you're the best. Thank you. So anyway, making a pie crust, this is the first time I ever made a pie crust without following any type of recipe at all. And so I don't think it was perfect. It's probably not pretty, but I'll tell you, this quiche was so good. It was delicious. So regardless as if it was pretty or not, the ending product was really good. So this is kind of like one of those meals I don't make a lot, and obviously it's more of a breakfast meal than a nighttime meal, but sometimes when I have like nothing else, it's always easy to make a quiche because it can be whipped up in no time at all. I have a freezer full of sausage. I always have a bunch of eggs, obviously, and onions going in, because you guys know my obsession with onions and garlic, and that goes in every meal. So just, you know, some vegetables. Like I would have put in spinach or kale if I would have had that. I looked in the freezer. Sometimes I have like bags of that in the freezer frozen, like after I buy it and it starts to go bad, and I had nothing. So it was just an onion sausage quiche. And then another thing is I realized about halfway through, probably around this time when I'm sitting here doing some dishes, like, oh crap, I don't have any cheese. How can you make a quiche without cheese? But then I did find I had some sliced cheese in the refrigerator, like not shredded cheese, not a block of cheese. We had sandwiches. We did like a park play date with some friends maybe last week. I don't remember. The cheese was still good. Found some cheese. So I just got the sliced cheese out and like crumbled it all up with my hands and topped the quiche with that. So still really good. For my filling, I'm just doing eggs. I did probably like 8 to 10 eggs. Some of these are small because, you know, when you're getting eggs just fresh off the farm, sometimes you have little eggs, sometimes you have big eggs, depending on the age of your chickens. So these were all pretty small. And so I did extra eggs and then lots of milk and seasonings. And that was my like egg mixture. There's my pie crust. You guys can tell me what you think. You can tell that my hands were definitely in there like pushing it, trying to make it get to the sides, and lots of pieces of butter. Oh well. Anyway, I put the sausage in. This is something I probably should have drained the sausage because it got really greasy, but it was so good. Oh man, it was so good. So anyway, this is dinner. Pretty simple. I don't have any recipe for you guys because I just winged it and made it up as I went. And like I said, no ending clip, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. I get out a new video every single week.